Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today this is going to be a book review or book recap / oral essay of the book called Handmaid's Tale. I'm mainly focusing on the book today. I realized there is a TV show. It's on Hulu. I'm pretty sure I think it's pretty good from what I hear. Or I saw the trailer for it and it looks insane, but I have not watched it. But it's So let's start off with a bit of information on this book. So who wrote this book? You might be asking to yourself if you've never read this book. Actually, if you haven't read this book, go read it first. The author is Margaret Atwood. She is 83 years old, so she's old. She's old. I hope. Oh, okay. Whatever. She's a well-known poet and a Canadian novelist. Now, who is the main character of this book, you may be asking? Their name is Offred, or Offred. I haven't, I cannot remember the trailer that much. Really, I cannot. Now, what we know is this book kind of takes place within, the 70s, 80s, even the 60s, that kind of around, because the television exists. But I actually looked up the date when this was released. It said the 80s. It was in the 80s. It was kind of ridiculous for me. Now, the setting for this book is a totalitarian government or regime in the middle of it. And though totalitarian regimes are a rarity in the modern world, there are only 4 true totalitarian regimes, dictatorships, whatever you call them, in the modern day that come to mind for me. Obviously, North Korea, that's the big one. We have Eritrea, Afghanistan, and Turkmenistan, 3 of which are in Asia. 1 is in Africa. And I guess you can put Russia and China in that ballpark too, but I wouldn't say they're fully totalitarian yet. They are getting there. They used to be. They're getting there once again. But that's not the discussion for today. But kind of. It takes place within this book. And overall, a lot of the contents of the book, some of it's the show, from what I see, is pretty interesting. However, reading some of the details in this book is kind of jarring from what these people have to go through. All right. We have a bunch of questions to go through. So let's go through them quickly here. All right. So what is the Canadian experience? Now, I will say this book kind of takes place within North America. Now, it's like the Republic or like the dictatorship or the whatever of Gelab. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But and I believe I get from what I get here is that Canada isn't really the thing here. It kind of takes place within the grander scheme of a North American entire. It's kind of like the Hunger Games, how it's kind of like a whole huge area that's not just, it's like Canada and America and the US in a massive country. This is kind of it's not Canada. This is not real Canada, but it takes place in the terrain, the area of Canada. See, Montreal got mentioned in this book a little while. I think there was a newscast, I believe, and Montreal was mentioned. Now, the Canadian experience. Unfortunately, Canada has a fractured past, and that is because of it's kind of totalitarian, dictatorship type ways that many people think the country had in the past. AKA, mainly referring to the residential schools, and they went through hell, and the women in this book who are suppressed and they are mistreated very, it's insane how how crazy these women are mistreated in this book. It's kind of jarring to read, really. Yeah, that's kind of like that's kind of the Canadian experience, because residential schools that took place within Canada, everywhere within Canada, not everywhere, but I believe in every province, every region of this country had a residential school of some sort or something. They were trying to get rid of the indigenous culture, which is obviously not the greatest, and we're seeing it was kind of like a dictatorship type ways that within these books. This is it's kind of weird. Now, how did the character respond? I'm mainly talking about the main character, Offred, I guess. She tried fighting it, and good for her, because they tried manipulating her. They tried doing stuff to her, and it does, the ending of the book does end up with her being taken away, and that's it's a cliffhanger. You don't know what happens to her. We're left to believe, oh, maybe she's going to a better life. Oh, maybe she's getting unalived. We're hoping it's not that. That's not the case. But I have not read. I don't know if this shows up in the show or not. I have not watched the show, so bear with me. What lessons can the reader use in real life? Now, I feel like the reader can take a story like this and be like, if despite all the hardships, focus on the positives. And it kind of seems like that's kind of what Offred was kind of hoping for. Let's say she gets out of this regime and somehow goes to a better life and whatever. I would hope, she's hoping, she wants it to be better, or obviously, she does contemplate suicide at the end, which is kind of one of the reasons it's a little bit jarring. But I will say, she doesn't like being manipulated, and they're trying to use her for the regime's own good, and that's kind of just they're trying to make her into what they've done. They're trying to do something to her that this regime has done to a lot of women under their command, and which is ridiculous. And I feel like people need to stand up for themselves in the regime. I know we're seeing a lot, and nowadays people are leaving countries because they are not being represented well to their standards, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. What was my reaction to the plot of this book? I think I said, it's a little bit jarring, because it's a little bit shocking. It's I thought I was going to be able to handle this, but it's kind of insane how this goes. It was really all right. Why is it important for Canadians to recognize and understand the experience here? A lot of people need to understand that the residential schools crisis, whatever you call it, was very similar to this. It was very, very similar to this kind of the situation. There be two different cultures, two different demographics being used, they're not being treated well. And we need to recognize that this stuff happened. Obviously, we can't do anything about it now. We're sending apologies and whatnot. But people need to realize that even though there's so many hardships, they need to move on. Now, I do want to. I realize this is already 10 minutes long. I'm worried. I tend to ramble on when I'm going through this. Now, I do want to read the last bit of the novel here, if I can find it, that is because I do think like it kind of sets up like a case of we don't really know what's going to happen, and I kind of said that earlier. There's a cliffhanger, and let's see what it says here. I'm just going to read the last page, or not really the last page. I'll read it from. Yeah, I'll read the last page. Let's go through it. So let's start. What has she done? And says Serena Joy. She wasn't the one who called them then. Whatever she had in store for me, it was more private. We can't say, ma'am. She said, is the one in front of me. Sorry. I need to see authorization, and says the commander. You have a warrant? I could scream now, cling to the banister, relinquish dignity. I could stop them, at least for a moment. If they're real, they'll stay. If not, they'll run away, leaving me here. Not that we he'd one, sir, but all is in order, says the first one again. Violation of state secrets. The commander puts his hand to his head. What have I been saying? And to whom? And which one of his enemies has found out? Possibly he will be a security risk now. I am above him, looking down. He is shrinking. There have already been purges among them. There will be more. Serena Joy goes white. B-word. Not going to say it. She says, after all he did for you. After all he did for you. Cora and Rita press through from the kitchen. Cora has begun to cry. It was her hope. I failed her. Now she will always be childless. The van waits in the driveway. Its double doors stand open. The two of them, on either side now, take me by the elbows to help me in. And whether this is my end or a new beginning, I have no way of knowing. I have given myself over into the hands of strangers because it can't be helped. And so I step up into the darkness within, or else the light. So oh my god, it's almost already over 13 minutes. We're gonna try and keep this under 15. Oh my god. It was so there's a cliffhanger there, and like I feel like a lot of people are some people are using the residential schools like some of the survivors we saw of residential schools are using their past to look forward for the positives, and they're trying to forget it. They're trying to become better people. Well, they're trying to motivate people or other people. Well, and that's kind of like the new beginning for them. Not really new beginning, like the light. And then obviously some people in those places, they met unfortunate fates. A lot of kids died in residential schools. And I know I'm like relating this book a lot to residential schools, and that's mainly because it's one of the things in Canada that Canada has a fractured past, and this is one of them, residential schools. And this book kind of reminds me, we're seeing, like I said this before, like two different groups that are not being treated well, or that were not being treated well. Now we know that women aren't as lucky in other countries. They aren't being treated well in other countries, and they're trying to leave. And yeah, it's obviously what's going on in other countries like Iran. It's not good. But we are seeing nowadays. He's like in residential schools. We saw it in the past. It's not anymore. But these people are being targeted. They're being held reliable just because they are indigenous and they were here first. Yeah. Either way, that is my review of this book. It's kind of all over the place, I'm not gonna lie, but overall, I will say, like, this book it's a pretty interesting read. Women being used as kind of like sex slaves, that's not great. Kind of icky. Like, if you don't like icky books, don't. I refrain from reading this book because it totally this stuff reminds me a lot of like Survivor Island of the Idols with the dance situation. But that is this review, oral essay type thing. I know this is supposed to be for like 5 to 10 minutes, but it's not. It's almost like 20 now. But here we go. That's the end. Thanks for listening. And yeah, well, yeah, that's it. Thanks.